Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Now, the organized private sector, OPS, has raised concerns over the cash scarcity in Nigeria, warning of its adverse impact on micro, small and medium-scale enterprises, MSMEs. Segun Kuti George, National Vice President of the Nigerian Association of Small-Scale Industrialists, stressed that Nigeria's economy is not equipped for a predominantly cashless system, as many citizens still rely heavily on cash for daily transactions. Dr. Femi Egbeshola, President of the Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria, noted that MSMEs, which depend on cash for small-scale transactions, are struggling to survive. Many businesses are forced to buy cash from POS operators at high rates, reducing profits or increasing prices, which in turn leads to lower sales and threatens the survival of these businesses. Dr. Muda Yusuf, the director of the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise, highlighted the disruption to economic activities, particularly in rural and informal sectors where cash is dominant. Factors such as low financial inclusion, distrust in banks following app failures, and money laundering have worsened the crisis. In response, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has introduced strict penalties, including a 150 million naira fine per branch for banks involved in illegal cash distribution. Despite these efforts, OPS leaders urge for policies that promote financial inclusion, improved electronic payment systems, and gradual implementation of cashless initiatives to prevent further harm to MSMEs and the broader economy. Now, to discuss this with us is Muktar Mohammed, is the CEO of Finance with Muktar. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning. Compliment of the season.
Compliment of the season to you. All right, so we're talking about, cashless society, and that's something that we've been driving out for a number of years. But it seems like we're not ready because a lot of people are still dependent on this. And with the MSMEs, that's what they need to be able to have their businesses thrive. Now, with this, what are some of the main concerns that you would say, or some things that you think would definitely affect these businesses at this time, especially if people do not have the money and in this Yuletide season?
Yes, like the Manufacturing Association have said, and people like Dr. Muda have said, it will be deceiving ourselves. We think we can just hit the ground running with our cashless policy as it stands now, because like he rightly pointed out, most of the businesses in Nigeria, especially the SMEs and MSs, are largely driven by cash. We are a cash-driven economy. And this is not far-fetched from the truth because of infrastructure. When we talk about infrastructure, we are talking about internet connectivity in the rural area especially. They have about 70% of Nigeria in those space. And so most smaller business, the market women, they are largely driven by cash. And in this festivity period, it's even a major challenge again, because even domestic staff that are also employed they normally need their cash also to do the purchase for Christmas, because most of the smaller business do not do cashless transactions. If you are traveling from Lagos through the commercial vehicle to your village, you are expected to pay cash. You are not expected to tell them you transfer. And sometimes why they don't believe in this transfer, like I say, is because of the infrastructure. And these infrastructure are due to network issues that have not really been resolved. And when you have some of these issues, resolving it takes almost forever going to the bank. So people do not totally have confidence in the cashless policy yet. And like I said, the rural area especially is hard hit. And most of what we consume during festivity period normally come from the rural area.
What in the first place is the advantage of this cashless economy? Because if I have 1,000 naira, for instance, that money begins to lose value per transaction. If I use that 1,000 for maybe 5 transactions, the value of the 1,000 naira drops because there's tax on every transaction that I'm doing if it's a cashless economy. So what really is the advantage of this cashless economy, apart from maybe security, that you don't need to be traveling with so much money? So what is it going to bring to us as a people?
I think you hit the nail, like a typical Nigeria. But again, you not to look at the cost of transporting yourself to the bank and the comfort of doing it in your own house also. You could also, when you add up to that, then you know that the cashless policy also has its advantage. I totally agree with you. There's not been incentive to allow Nigerians to really want to go cashless because in other societies, in other countries, there's incentives, and some of the
Yeah.
time these incentives are largely driven by government making it interesting, making people want to do cashless because of the incentives that come with it. You just hit the nail in Nigerian own time. It's more or less like you're doing a cashless policy, and it's like more or less the drop in value of your money. And that's one challenges that the fintech, remember there was a time that some of these fintech companies, why they want people to use their app, they tell you that it's transactional free. And so that was helped also to make a lot of people coming in that space. But after some time now, for every transaction, like you say, you pay value added tax, which is then again, you have to also to pay the transaction cost, which is almost above, I think when you do any transaction above 5,000 naira, you pay about 50 naira. And so that is a consign. And that's why I'm saying that the only way you can address such concerns is if you have shared infrastructure, because but what we have now is that every bank seems to have its own backbone, but in developed countries in the world, they always have the shared infrastructure where banks use one infrastructure that reduce costs, that makes transaction from the comfort of your room, cashless transaction attractive to investors rather than going to the bank to do those transactions, because that's where time is money. But again, in our own economy, our economy is not largely driven by time in terms of productivity.
Yeah.
Our economy is largely driven by the end of the month to take your salary. But when it's driven by time in terms of productivity, you want to do it from the comfort because you have more time to be productive and to earn more.
All right, so let's talk about SMEs collapse, because the organized private sector now is saying that there might just be a collapse based on this cash scarcity. But I want to talk about the SMEs. How significant are they, to our economy? Because of course, I'm sure they are generating revenue, and if we want to make more money as Nigerians or for Nigeria, we need them. But I want you to walk us through that. How significant are they in our economic system to ensure that we're getting in as much revenue as we would love to?
I can tell you that they are the most vibrant sector in the Nigerian economy. They are the largest employer of labor. Over 80% of Nigerians are employed by the SMEs, which are called the informal sector. They are largely driven by cash. And so when you begin to trouble that sector, a challenge for that sector is a big challenge to the Nigerian economy. You don't need to look too far. Remember the Naira redenomination policy of the federal government, the impact it had on the sector. They have not recovered from it, and now we are back to where we were before in terms of forcing them to go cashless. We know why the CBN is trying to make sure that everybody is trying to control the flow of liquidity in the system, because they say they have about 4-point-something trillion in the system as it stands today. And again, when you look at 4-point-something trillion and then you are still having cash shortage, that tells you that there's something wrong with it, because what happened is that most of these 4-point-something trillion that they say they have outside the system are largely kept in by corrupt Nigerians, and which in turn they take this money to change to dollar and keep it in their houses. So once most of this money are in the houses of most corrupt Nigerians, so that those money are not easily found by the Economic and Financial Crime Commission. So when they say money in circulation, you think you have that 4-point-something trillion in circulation, but in the real sense, half of that money is kept. And when they want to be used, they want to be used to exchange to dollars. And that is why we have seen that demand for dollar higher than what you have for Naira. So it's a big challenge. The CBN had to come up with ways on how to deal with that, because again, I've said it time and time again, anytime you come on with monetary policy decision and you think the best way to fight inflation is to reduce liquidity in the system, then you are killing one of the most vibrant sectors in the Nigerian economy. And that is the reason why inflation has not really been able to reduce, because we are hitting one of the largest part of our business by reduction in terms of liquidity in the system. So I for one will always think that what we need to do is to look at how we can monitor this transaction in terms of cash transaction. A situation whereby a POS that was definitely established to do low cash turnover, like between 10 to 50,000, they are sometimes doing up to 500,000, 1 million. How do they get those cash? That means regulatory is also not in that space. So we need to improve regulation, and so that we begin to make sure that then you drive a lot of people into the cashless policy. For now, you have to give thanks to the fintech companies. They seem to be the tools of smaller businesses. But like a colleague rightly pointed out, also are not so excited about it because of the margin of profit when you go cashless in terms of the fees that you pay. That's why sometimes again going cashless also increase increase the mode of payment, because when you go to do a cashless policy, because it costs the vendor a little amount of money, they want to collect charges, then you, the consumers, are also charged by the market women to pay for that cost, and so that increase your cost of in terms of buying household item, and then your earning has not increased also. So it's reducing the purchasing power of Nigerians, because we are not making it attractive. Wherever you said, okay, this cashless policy comes in, okay, when you do cashless, you have an incentive of 50 naira back into your account. You drive a lot of people into that space. But for now, a lot of people are not really ready to go into that space.
Yeah, it's really debilitating is the word, or something else, but it's not really good. It doesn't look good at all. You're going cashless, and then you're losing cash because you're going cashless, and some people will just be more comfortable just staying in their houses, especially like in the rural areas where, like you said, cash is very important. Nobody wants to travel to the urban area just to go and put money into the bank that he cannot withdraw at any time. He cannot transfer at any time. And if you transfer it, it's taking out of, it's a problem. But now, inflation has hit 34%, but 34 point something percent. Yeah. And the waivers on food that were promised a long time ago have still not come till now. So many months later, I don't know, as we are entering 2025, with the budget that we have, I don't know if there's anything looking up from what you have seen so far. Even though the budget has not been presented, we know a few things about what the budget is going to look like. We have at least a benchmark for the oil, $75 per barrel, I think, 1,400 to a dollar also, and so many other things that the budget was predicated upon. So what do you think 2025 will look like with these projections that the federal government is giving us?
Well, it's going to be a very interesting year. That's what I can say in the Nigerian economy based on this budget projection. You've said about two very important things: oil benchmark at $75 per barrel. That will be a big challenge. You know why it will be a big challenge? Because of the coming of the new president of America, Donald Trump. He's a person that does not believe in high oil costs, and also will be opening up the reserve in the U.S. and also opening up new oil production. So that will reduce the demand of oil in the international market, because most of the demands for oil in the international is largely driven by the United States of America. And some of these things are kept in the reserve, and Donald Trump is threatening to open up the reserve because he's not a fan of high energy costs, especially when it comes to oil. So that is already going to be a major challenge. Exchange rate also is going to be a big challenge, because exchange rate of 1,400. The previous budget exchange rate was $800 to a naira, but we didn't even achieve that. And now we are putting at the 1,400, and the current exchange rate, despite the jubilation that we had some weeks ago, we have seen that it's hovering between 1,600 and 1,650. And that's why I always say we are just maintaining a corridor of stability. We have not been able to improve to a corridor of stability itself, rather than just a corridor of 600, 151, 1,550. We thought that at the end of this year, we might see the exchange rate get to 1,500. But we are not seeing that yet, but hopefully we should see that by this. Let me use the average Nigerian thing, by the special grace of God. And the other thing that we've not really looked at also, it has to do with the oil production. At the oil production of 2.02 million barrels per day. That is going to be an uphill task. Currently, we are according to the government, we have done 1.7 million barrels. According to OPEC, we have done 1.4 million barrels. So there's a differential of over 300,000 barrels, which is huge. So it's going to be a very challenging budget because funding that budget again, you know that budget funding also was to be implemented also through the tax reform. This tax reform is having its own issues, political issues that has to do with some part of the country not in support of that. We are seeing that reforms. By now we thought that the presidency thought that the Senate would have been able to pass it into law before the presentation of the budget, because most of their revenue for funding of this budget also is largely driven by that reform. So we are not seeing that. We don't know when we'll see that. So it's already a budget that is already challenged even before being presented. And so it's going to be a very, very tough. Will that budget be able to address high cost of living? As it stands now, yes, if you look at importation, if we are able to bring the naira to 1,400, and that means 200 naira differential is huge in terms of importation, that could help drive down costs. But again, you have the challenges of a policy that could have been one of the game changers, like you said, the removal of tariff on household items. Now that policy has been put into the tax reform, and it has not been passed by the National Assembly. Like I said, there's a challenge with that. So if I'm sitting here looking at the budget, I think it's going to be a very interesting year. I want to see how the government can be able to fund this. But we already have feel that there will be borrowing. Even with the projection, they're supposed to see some borrowing again. So it's something that we need to watch in the coming days and in 2025. But I can tell it's going to be an interesting 2025 for Nigerians.
All right, so circling back into this whole cash scarcity brouhaha, what actions do you think that the government needs to take right now? I know one thing is the central bank has imposed a fine of about 150 million naira to banks that are erring, because, you know, you go to these banks, you probably cannot get the cash, but then you're at events and you're seeing people hawking this cash. You go to the POS operators, they have it, but where you put your money, you probably cannot access it that way. So what are some actions that you think the government are taking right now? And even if they are not, what actions would you recommend them to ensure that there is no cash scarcity? And this is the holiday season. People need cash. And we don't want our SMEs to collapse.
Well, I wish the first thing is make cash available. That's what the government should be doing now. Like you see, this is a festivity period. I talk about domestic staffs. This is the period that they serve on cash. You and I know the Nigerian factor.
Yeah.
Domestic staff, securities. Everybody just wants somebody coming past through there and giving them a cash of 1,000, 2,000, and then here we are not having that cash. That also is affecting their bottom line. If you look at it, so the government should bring cash into the system. That's one thing they need to do. In the terms of 150 million fund, I think for me, I don't think it's something to be celebrated about, because at the end of the day, we don't see the light of some of these CBN saying, "Oh, we are going to charge you 150 million for," because again, they are the regulators. They should know where these cash are going to. They should be able, if you want to be transparency and integrity, you need to publish to us, each bank, how much cash is being given to them, so that customers will, when you go to that bank, you tell them, look, the CBN just published that you have so amount of cash, so you should be able to pay us. But the CBN also are playing politics with it, because it's a tool that they are using to see if they can control inflation. And like you said, it's killing one of the most vibrant sectors in the Nigerian economy, the SME space. For the ones that you see in party, I think it's not in the preview of the CBN to do anything about that. It's the security agency. There's a law in this country that says public hawking of cash takes a jail term of about 6 months, depending on the judge. And we have seen it happen recently to some celebrity, and then some other celebrities settle out of court. Maybe it's beginning to plan out that was just a means of going after some of them. Because after that, at the point we saw that there was no cash in when you go to events, you see, though they still spraying of money, but there was a unique way that they were not doing it openly again. They were not doing the recklessly like they used to do. But if you go to events these days, they are back again, and things have returned back to normal. So that's why I keep saying that sometimes in this country, it's not that we don't have the law, but it's the implementation of those laws. So for us to do that, the CBN need to make cash available to Nigerians. That is one. Secondly, CBN need to make cash available to the banks and let every Nigerian know that we have enough cash in circulation. not calling to tell us that you have about 4.something trillion in circulation. You're not telling us each of these banks how much they have in circulation. You need to tell us, you need to be clear. So integrity must come up. The security agents have to up their game, because like I said, POS terminals are not supposed to have more than 50,000 to give to people, 5,000, 10,000. How are they getting up to 1 million, 2 million? Sometimes you hear the security agent arrest POS terminals for transaction of millions. How? So the security agent also will need to wake up, especially the Economic and Financial Crime Commission, to be able to deal with these issues.
All right. Thank you so much. It's been quite insightful. Thank you, Muktar. It's always a pleasure having you. This is where we have to wrap it up now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Have a wonderful day.
Yes, sir. All right, so we're speaking with Muktar Mohammed, is the CEO of Finance with Muktar, and we've just been talking about the organized private sector that fears SMEs might collapse with lingering cash scarcity. This is where we have to say goodbye on The Breakfast today. Thank you so much for having the breakfast with us. My name is Rume Paulson.
And I am Nyamgul Agaji. We're so glad that you were there. Have a wonderful day.
Have a wonderful day. See you tomorrow. Good morning.